Gonzo Education, Chapter 10, Part 3, Todo. These neighbors, Michael and I lived in the tiny mold-infested cottage for about a year without any problems. It wasn't until a nosy, overzealous family across the street who didn't like the looks of us that things got messed up. These neighbors were members of the Hyde Park Homeowners Association, and they'd sit on lawn chairs in their front yard waiting for anything they deemed as suspicious behavior so they could call the cops. This wouldn't have been that odd, but they were the only family living on a street with single professionals and frat houses. They weren't interested in what the UT Greek system was up to, but they were obsessed as hell with us renting a building in someone's backyard. One afternoon, I found our neighbor waiting for me by my Mazda. He asked where I was living and what I was doing in the neighborhood. "No one is supposed to live in that building in that backyard over there," he said, pointing nosily. "Oh, I know that," I told him with a smile. "My brother and I are just using it as a workspace. He's an artist and I'm a writer." Yeah, that's great," he said. "I've seen you guys there at night." "Is it illegal to work at night?" I asked sarcastically. "There's mold in there. It's uninhabitable. Condemned," he said. I thanked him for his concern, got in my car, and sped away. I suppose they didn't like the sight of our crappy $1,000 cars parked next to their Mercedes, but we didn't like the sight of them either. They'd always let their toddler-aged children run around naked in the front yard. Cars would drive by and stare in shock from the busy thoroughfare. At the time, I didn't particularly like children and definitely didn't want to see naked ones doing laps around my car every time I went for a drive. I usually took the bus to school and my car would stay parked on the street. I didn't start driving daily again until I got a part-time job dealing cards for a casino company. It was one of the best jobs I ever had, and I learned a lot about blackjack and poker. The job worked with my schedule, and most of the parties were either on or around the university, so for the first time, I actually felt part of the UT community. Mornings were my favorite time on campus. I'd spend a few hours in the library burning CDs on my laptop. UT has one of the largest CD collections in the world, and while I was there, I gathered over 25,000 songs. I wasn't just illegally downloading music, I was giving myself an education in rock, reggae, classical, and jazz. One of my favorite things to do is to look at the card in the back of the CD that the library stamps every time somebody checks out a particular disc. Some of the more rare albums I borrowed hadn't seen the light of day since the early 1980s. I'd look at the card and wonder what UT was like back then. We didn't struggle to pay rent at the Troll House, but keeping out of sight from the neighbors was almost impossible. I got a part-time job working the graveyard shift at a 7-Eleven a few blocks away, so the naked family could come see me whenever they wanted while I was at work. They'd always come in and try to mock me. I didn't tell them I went to UT because I probably would have stopped donating to the endowment. One morning, Michael was at work. Me and my girlfriend woke up to a loud banging on the door. One morning while Michael was at work, me and my girlfriend woke up to a loud banging on the door. I got up to open it, but before I could, a burly brute came storming inside. He was dressed in an official City of Austin uniform and barked at me and my half-dressed friend. "I got you now," he screamed. "You ain't supposed to live here." My girlfriend and I rubbed our eyes. We rubbed our eyes and tried to figure out what was going on, but before I could say anything, dude whipped out the digital camera and started taking snapshots of us getting out of bed. "Just getting evidence," he said. The girl I was with screamed obscenities as he ran out of the shack, frightened. I went outside to try to reason with him, but he wouldn't listen to a word I said. We yelled at each other for a few minutes before I gave up, threw my hands in the air, and went back inside. Pretty good, huh? The guy apparently worked for the Code Enforcement Division in the City of Austin. His job was to go around and write tickets to property owners who weren't following Austin's strict living codes. I called my landlord and told him what happened. He told me the guy would be back and for us not to answer any questions or even the front door. It was clear the neighbors wanted me, Michael, and our bad cars off their street and out of their neighborhood. They acted as like we were lowering property values with every second we lived there. Things calmed down for a few weeks, and other than an occasional dirty look from the naked family, we didn't have any problems with the Austin Code Enforcement. I finished the spring semester and made the highest grades I had made so far at UT. If I kept going at the same rate, I'd graduate in about a year. UT didn't offer to pay my tuition that summer, so I started working full-time at 7-Eleven. It was the first time in 5 years I wasn't enrolled in summer school. Sometimes a UT student would come in and recognize me at 7-Eleven, and they'd usually act like they'd caught me selling crack to school kids. working wasn't cool to them. I forgot about the incident with code enforcement for a minute and got on with my life. It was nice having a break for school. I was looking forward to taking it easy for a few months, getting some rest and watching the 2008 NBA Finals. I wasn't reminded about our tentative living situation until the city employee came back with a gang of his friends. Michael and I were smoking a blunt. I was trying to chug a beer before my shift at 7-Eleven. As soon as we heard the banging on the door, we knew it was code enforcement. After their knock, a group of them barged inside. Michael got in one of the guys' faces and started to talk back until I realized they were serious about beating us down. We were tired of watching our backs anyway, so we agreed to move out. I had to get to work, so after the code enforcement bastards left, Michael emptied out the troll house. I worked my graveyard shift and got back at about 7 a.m. It had been a long night of vomit cleanup at the local convenience store, and I didn't really feel like being homeless again, but sometimes you don't have a choice. You gotta keep your head up and keep fighting. Crying about it never helps. I was grateful that I at least had the summer off from school. I wouldn't have been able to handle going to UT bright and early every morning and sitting with rich kids when I was tired, homeless, and dirty. While I was at work, Michael moved everything to our cars while our cat, Sam, ran around his legs and jumped on and off of our vehicles wondering what was going on. We couldn't take him with us and he could see we were leaving. It was early Saturday morning and the naked family was getting a show, watching Michael move everything out of our home one piece at a time. They couldn't wait for us to get out of their neighborhood, and we were trying to get out of their line of sight as quickly as possible. My tiny car was packed with useless crap, and I could barely fit inside. When I finally squeezed in, it started up okay, and I tried to drive away, but I couldn't go more than a couple blocks without it stalling. Apparently, I wasn't leaving this highbrow district anytime soon. I pushed my Mazda 3 blocks to get some distance from me and the naked family. Michael put most of our possessions in my car so he could use his to deliver pizzas. I was living in a broken down car, again, but at least I was far enough away from the naked family where they couldn't say anything. I had to be back at 7-Eleven that afternoon for my graveyard shift, so I tried taking a nap before it got too hot. I pushed the driver's seat back as far as it could go, which wasn't that far with all the junk in the back, and I closed my eyes and started to count sheep. I was out for 5 minutes before I heard a loud bang on the hood. It was my cat Sam. He thought I was leaving him and he was screaming, meow. Wherever I was going, he wanted to come too. The little fella kept trying to crawl in the car, so I got out and walked him back to the empty troll house. The next day when I got off work, I went to go try to feed Sam, but I was surprised to see a dozen construction workers there. The landlord must have finally decided to bring the place up to code. On the third day, I made sure to get there before the workers did and found Sam waiting for me in the driveway, crying his little orange head off. For the next week, Sam and I'd meet up before the construction workers got there. I'd give him a can of food, and I'd give him a can of food. Sometimes he ignored the food and just rubbed against me like, I don't want food, I want you. I went to the library and put an ad on Craigslist trying to find someone to watch him. I didn't have any money, but I put up a post with a few cute cat pictures of him and said a few prayers. A few days later, I got an email from a freshman girl who just moved to Austin and was thinking about getting a cat. She said she wanted to try one out first, and she agreed to watch Sam until I got back on my feet. You can visit him anytime and have him back whenever. I was so relieved to know he was in good hands, and I stopped feeling sorry for myself. I was homeless, something I was used to, but I didn't have much else to worry about besides heat exhaustion. This was the hottest June Texas had ever seen, and it never got cooler than 80 degrees. It was the hottest June on record, and it never got cooler than 80 degrees. There wasn't a drop of rain or a cloud in the sky. You can't sleep when it's that hot. It was a nightmare, and you can't sleep when it's that hot. I've gone through various stints of homelessness, but I never had to do them without any sleep. My only source of income that summer was the graveyard shift at 7-Eleven, so I had to try and sleep during the day when it was 100 degrees in the shade. My car didn't have air conditioning, and it couldn't go more than a few blocks without stalling anyways, so the first time in my life, I went days without sleeping. After 72 hours, I basically went insane and started having auditory hallucinations. During the day, I tried leaving my car parked somewhere and sneak into a set of woods and maybe crawl under some leaves and sleep, but it was too hot and there were too many bugs in Texas. Even when I had the night off and it was dark outside, I'd park in front of a house that didn't look like anyone was home and roll up my windows. I'd usually just leave it cracked so I could breathe. The only thing that kept me cool was the beads of sweat dripping down my face. In the middle of the night, I couldn't tell if I was falling asleep or passing out from heat exhaustion. When the sun finally came up, I dragged my sweaty ass out of my car and found somewhere to piss shit and clean what I could. Michael got lucky. He didn't have to live in his car because he got accepted into the overnight research facility that tests drugs on people for money. It was the same place that rejected me and my smelly feet years earlier. Michael got to live there and got paid for it. For 3 weeks, all he did was play pool, watch TV, and work on his artwork. After his first night, he called me and said if I could survive living outside for a couple weeks, then when he got out, he'd pay for a cheap motel room we could both stay at until we found something better. I got through the next week with help from my friend Charles. I could keep my job without sleep, but I at least had to be presentable at work. Charles lived in a dorm off the drag and let me use his shower. He had an extra room and said I could sleep there at night, but I was still on graveyard shift, so I only took him up on a few afternoon naps. After my second week of sleep deprivation, I started taking the bus to UT early in the morning after my 7-Eleven shift. I wasn't enrolled in summer school, but I still had a UT ID and full access to library perks. I'd reserve viewing rooms, check out movies, and then arrange the chairs and tables to make a temporary bed. One morning, there was a huge beanbag chair in one of the rooms. I laid down on it and basically went into a coma. When I woke up, hours later, there was a huge puddle of slobber under my mouth. The next day, the chair was gone. I was never happier to see Michael than when he got out of the research facility. I was waiting for him by his car. The first thing we did was drive to a cheap motel. Michael paid for the room, and I must have slept for 2 days straight. I kept working at 7-Eleven while we stayed there. I get up at 6 in the morning, take a 2-hour bus ride across town to the motel, get in bed, and fall asleep to Turner Classic Movies. That was from Chapter 10 of the book Gonzo Education. Chapter 10 is called Todo or Nada. You can get there's still more to it, but you can get this on Amazon for about $5-6. If you liked my reading, click the thumbs up button, smash the subscribe button. But also, more importantly, go to the Amazon page and write something about the review. Say, oh, I saw a little bit of this book on YouTube and it was really intriguing to me. I really enjoyed it. Gregory Brandt, that's me, is a really great writer and it's a really interesting story. That mean $1 million to me, and it would mean a lot to me, and I appreciate it. Thanks. Have a nice day.